let me introduce you, who we've got here. We've got Carmen Munroe. We've got Doña Croll. We've got Corinne Carter. And we've got Adjoa Andoh. Natasha and myself. So as Natasha said, what we're going to do is we're going to sort of chat with these ladies and focus individually, but that's just the focus. It doesn't mean that we can't all just join in and chime in when we want to, but focus on individual stories and journeys and then discuss whatever commonality we find in the stories as we go along. So it's all very open. And then we've made sure this time to leave a lovely bit of time in the second half for all the questions and interaction that I know you guys are going to want to participate in. So can we start with you, Carmen?
Oh.
we're doing it in order. The order is your arrival and participation within this industry. I've lost my pencil.
Okay.
Before we
the
started.
Was there any?
I didn't say that. What I said was
who. Saying it.
Okay, but it's not actually true. That's not actually true, though. So, do you want to tell us about when you came? And where do you want us to start with your story? Where do you think that starts?
Well,
well, you're from Guyana.
Yeah, I was from Guyana. Incidentally, I came the Waterloo cars, people that you sent to pick me up. Where are you from? Because he sounded very, very from far away.
Okay.
Anyway, I didn't ask him. He asked me, where were you from? I said, Guyana. He said, Ghana. I said, no, Guyana. And he said, oh, I picked up someone yesterday from Guyana. I said, very rare. Because I thought, I haven't been in a cab where anybody knew anybody from Guyana. Unless it was a Guyanese driving the cab. Anyway, that's Guyana. And incidentally, this is just off the track.
Please.
I just heard from my sister that Guyana is awash with oil.
Yes.
Oh no.
When's America inventing?
Again.
When I go in.
So, I guess you came over because there was no oil at the time.
At the time. No. Anyway, I arrived here in this country in 1951. My sister came 2 months before me, my sister Daphne Steele, who's just had a blue plaque put up in her Yeah, she was first black matron. In the country, in Europe.
Wow.
Anyway, yes, so that's I got lineage.
You
do. You got blue plaque, she got oil. She got talent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not here for the afternoon.
So why did you come over?
No, I tell you what, my family and another family, the Munroe family, my name is Steele with an E. That's my maiden name. I'm Mrs. Munroe. And I came with, my sister came and I'm gonna get married because I was engaged to this person in Guyana. And so came up in 51, got married in 52, my son was born in 53, and by 55 the marriage was breaking up. But I started off in Earl's Court at an organization, the West Indian Students Union. I don't know. Yes? Who knows that?
Baldwin spoke there. Baldwin spoke there.
Yes, I saw him there years ago.
We're an informed bunch, Carmen.
I started together like before your time.
Yeah, as well.
Anyway, at West Indian Students Union, where I met this incredible woman. I always wanted to be, from the time I was brought up in Guyana with the whole concept that of standing tall. The old West Indian ladies, very strict, upright. This is why I'm sitting like this. I can't sit back in this chair because it doesn't feel comfortable.
No, yeah.
So, anyway, in 51 and so on. But I joined the West Indian Students Union in 55, at this time I started to go, I was working in various offices, mostly government, ministry office, Ministry of Fuel and Power, Ministry, very good times, because whenever you finish schooling, and you're trained with shorthand and typing, just to prepare you for the next step, whatever it might be. And so I came with my certificates and started working. So I started to work in these offices and so on. But at the same time, I was going to these classes, evening classes, and then the first time I did actually tread the boards was at the Unity Theatre. Nobody here knows Unity.
Yeah.
We're in a informed bunch, babe.
Oh man, Unity Theatre was kind of very left wing, left of left wing. You know what I mean? And the Unity Theatre. So I used to work at Associated Rediffusion. I worked at Associated Rediffusion, commercial television, before they actually went on air. And I would go to Unity and work there and rehearse with them, just keeping close to the thing. This is after the West Indian Students' Union, because the person who taught me at West Indian Students' Union was a woman called Dorothea Alexander, who was one of the people at the Guildhall. And this woman said to me, if you're really serious about this, you can go, I would recommend you go to my teacher. The person who was teaching me sent me to her teacher. And I said, yes. So I used to leave work and go all the way to Archway, and go all the way down this road, and Gatcombe was where she lived, at number 10. And I would rehearse, and she'd take me, she said, I don't have to teach you how to speak, you can speak, but I just want you to understand that whatever is necessary for you to be on stage, that you have, it's there. I can teach you how to. Absolutely, and that's how I was trained. So, and I went with her, and then I went to the West Indian Students' Union, and then I went to City Literary Institute, and I went privately and all this, and that was the beginning. The first job I got was in 1962, and someone here who I don't know if anybody, you know Pearl Connor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the mother of us all.
That's right.
Whenever I think of her, it brings me.
I'm very glad when we can call names and bring these people into the room with us.
Ah, God, it just sort of almost brings me to tears
Yes.
when I think of Pearl Connor.
There will be a few people here who don't know anything about Pearl or her legacy. Can you quickly just give a little idea of who
Pearl
she was
Connor
and what she meant?
She was a firebrand. She was trained as a lawyer. She was from Trinidad. Her husband was Edric Connor. And Edric was kind of the answer to Paul Robeson, as it were. He was our Paul Robeson. He had a beautiful voice. He actually worked in Hollywood long before anybody had ever thought of going to Hollywood, or people from here going to Hollywood. He sang amazing voice. And Pearl Connor started this agency. She really was a strong, not tough, tough sounds like not very nice, but very strong woman, very determined woman. And she would phone, she became an agent, and she would represent anybody.
So the first agent to represent black talent in this country, basically.
Pearl Connor Agency.
Yes. 1962 was your first time on the stage, and I think that was with Tennessee Williams.
Oh yes,
Yes.
playing The Maid.
We all been there.
Yes, okay, yeah. But then, I determined then, it's not going to be another one. That's it. You know what I mean? But it got me my equity card. Because it transferred to the West End.
Oh.
I didn't even know that was a big deal.
You went to
It's a
Wyndham's.
huge deal. Even today, it's a
5
huge
months.
deal.
Yes.
5 months at Wyndham's Theatre. So.
Starting at the Royal Court as well.
Yes, of course.
So no
Yes.
small things, really.
And George Devine, these names wouldn't mean much to me.
They kind of
They
do
do.
to some people. And
Yeah.
Judge
He
Devine.
took over. He took over from the person who was directing us because it was going all over the place. He came to see it and he said he thought, is this when you open next week? Really? So he had to get in there and put it together, and that's how we opened. Anyway, that's kind of the beginning.
Yes.
The getting on stage in the professional sense,
Yes.
because I did work at the Unity Theatre, and I did do stuff at the West Indian Students' Union.
And then you also directed as well. What brought you to directing?
Oh yes, that was. Oh yeah. That was not Umoja.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember her?
Yeah. Gloria.
Gloria.
And,
I can't remember his name now.
is that their first job? My first job.
Yes.
We'll do this afterwards.
Yes. Yes. Umoja. Yes.
So it was as a result of Umoja.
Then I was asked with Yvonne Brewster with the Black Theatre Season, which we put together at the Arts Council. I have to tell you that apart from being on the stage, I work constantly in some capacity in the theatre and in the environs of the theatre. I was a member of the GLC, the ethnic minority unit, that's what we were, the EMU, with Paminda Veer, does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yes. And we, together with Anton Phillips,
Oh, yes.
put together this Arts Council project at the, well, it was at the Arts Theatre, actually.
Yes.
And but some of it, the piece that I did was with John Machikisa.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like a call and response thing.
Huh?
My uncle.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
All right.
Machikisa is her uncle.
The late great.
Oh, the late great, yes. Because you see, I also knew John's father, who came
Okay,
here.
okay, guys. We got a whole hour in the second half.
Yeah, who
We
came-
still haven't even got to Tallowa yet.
Yeah, but no, Carmen was only just now. Carl Connor brought here a show called King Kong.
Yeah.
And that's where I was first introduced to the whole South African thing. And oh gosh, it was absolutely amazing meeting all these people. John Machikisa's father, Todd Machikisa, came with King Kong.
Yeah.
Oh.
You wrote King Kong.
Huh?
You wrote it.
Sorry?
He wrote
Yeah,
it.
he was part, Todd, yes, he was,
Todd wrote
yes,
it.
he wrote, yeah. Well,
He wrote it.
yeah, well, I still
Yeah.
got the program, so I can always check if you're right. I got everything.
Don't throw it away.
No, don't throw it away. You should see the pile of stuff.
Brilliant.
And it's, yeah, anyway. So,
Yes.
anyway. So, how did I get to?
Well, we
John
were
Mackey?
trying to get
John
to your
Mackey is
directing.
No, he directed me in something for that season called Beef No Chicken.
Yes.
Derek Walker.
Yes.
At the Shaw Theatre, and that was part of the season of the Black Theatre. And then I was asked to direct Remembrance. Derek Walker's piece. Absolutely incredible. I don't know if I really, it was a, I don't know, it was a, success is a kind of word that you kind of think, it's we don't know.
I have to say that it was seeing Norman in Remembrance that made my final decision to become an actor. Yes.
Well, it's seeing him in that made me think, yes, I could direct this.
There you go.
Because I didn't direct him.
Right.
That was a different production.
Okay.
But I did do, but directing is something that I could feel, but I didn't think that I could do. You know, I don't think that I did all that well with it.
And yet you did it.
Oh yes, oh yes, you have to do it.
Yes.
All of the stuff that I've done, I say that you have to do it. It was no kind of nothing like a load on my back. It was never like that. It was just because of a consciousness. I came from a family that did stuff. My mother came here at the age that she was. I mean, my mother at 6 started a piano lesson class here in England. At that time, you think there was hardly any black people at her age. I meet people who say, you know, your mother taught me piano. Wonderful. But that was the whole, that was a kind of a family thing. It was always that we would do stuff. We will do things. We'll step out of what was supposed to be our place and do things. It was no big deal, but it was kind of like, I expected it of myself.
What strikes me is how much of a history there is of strong, independent, enterprising women who were basically doing, as you're saying, before there was a notion of feminism or there was a word for it. There was always these women who were coming out of the box that they've been put into, and historically throughout. And what that is, especially because you'd moved country. So,
yes.
Yeah. But you found people over here, like you said, that you felt a sympathy with and felt an empathy with, and that you were able to work with.
People who wanted to move, people who weren't waiting. I mean, you were blocked on so many levels, and we know what that is. That is still happening. But at that time, the whole concept was that, of course, that you might be blocking me, but I know that I can go past you. I was brought up like that. There's no block to where you want to go. You just find a means to go. You know what I mean? And to still stand, the most towering spirit I know is my mother.
Yes. It's
And
always
so-
interesting.
Yes, and I didn't, at no time at all did I ever feel, though it was there, I was conscious, I could see it, I lived in it, and I knew it, but it was always for me, from my point of view, is that I will go. I can't think of anything that will say you can't.
Yes.
Only someone out there might say that, but it doesn't get here.
But also you
It's not
doing
me.
that means that people follow, and that you lead by an example, by having the courage, or even for what you're saying, it's not even courage, just doing it, getting out there.
Yes.
So I'd like to, at this point, draw Corinne into the discussion. So we've got Corinne Skinner-Carter. Corinne, would you take us, where would you like to start your story? Where do you think that starts recounting?
I would like to start my story from when I arrived in this country.
Okay.
You know, when I arrived in this country in 1955,
Yes.
I actually came up here to go to teacher's training college.
Right.
But I never got there until 18 years later. But so I came here. I didn't have family here,
Right.
but I had good friends who advised me that this was the best place for me to be at that time of my life. So I arrived here, and because among other things that I did in Trinidad, I used to dance with Jeffrey Holder
yes.
at the time.
Well, okay, so Jeffrey Holder, tell the people who might be unfortunate enough not to have heard of Jeffrey Holder. Can you tell them a little bit about Jeffrey Holder?
Well, the company in Trinidad started with Bosco Holder. Bosco Holder, as a Trinidadian, an artist, both in actual paintings and drawings and things like that, but also in dancing. And he had this company in Trinidad where people went and, they were in the company and they were dancers. But Bosco left Trinidad in about 1950-something.
If
1952
I
or
can
53.
interject as well, because was this part of the Little Carib Dancers? Were you part of the Little Carib Dancers as well? The Little
Bosco
Carib?
was, yeah.
Yes, with
Yeah,
Barrel.
and his brother took over the company called Jeffrey Holder.
So
Now
so
Jeffrey
these
Holder
dancers,
ended up in America doing a lot of dancing and doing the same thing that he did. And he was the one who choreographed the dance movement in the Bond film called Live and Let's Die. And if you remember the Bond film, he was the guy who played the...
Baron Samedi.
Huh?
Baron Samedi.
That's right. And he did a lot of things. But he did a lot of things apart from that in America. But anyway, so I was in the company in Trinidad, in this Jeffrey Holder, Trinidad. Because Jeffrey was a photographer and an artist, he used to send all these pictures of me to his brother. So when I arrived in this country, although I came to do the dancing, Bosco met me and took me under his wing. So I had really an easy way of getting into show business. And forgot about the teaching, because I went all over the world dancing and, sort of thing. But as Carmen was saying, in those days, they didn't think about female people as such. It was always the male, and you were the secondary thing. Oh, well, he could have a wife, or he could have a, the girls doing the dancing, all the whining and carrying on, but the boys are doing all the prim and proper, But so I must say, at that time, my whole life was in the dancing. I had to go to work during the day. So in between going on doing shows and dancing here and there and everywhere, I had to go to work. So I worked. First, I worked in London. What do you call it? London Transport as a secretary. Because when you left home in those days, artists didn't have a job as an artist. You had to work, and in the evening you go to your whatever. You go to your drama school, or you go to your whatever school, or you go in the field and you run, and do things like that. Artist was not a profession. So you went to school, you got your senior Cambridge, you went to a commercial school, you did your typing and your shorthand and everything. That's what the women do. The girls did the shorthand and the typing and the thing. The men went straight into the civil service, or went away and did their studies or whatever. But so in Trinidad, I did work during the day and do the show. So anyway, when I came here, I started to do work in the day and dance with Bosco and whoever was around at that time. And fortunately for me, I got in one of those first films that was done like Top of the Pops. As a dancer, it was called Cool for Cats. And it was called Cool for Cats, and it was in 1956. And I happened to get a job with them doing Cool for Cats. And because of that Cool for Cats, and people saw the program, I got jobs to do other things. Dancing. I went all the way to Spain and to Portugal and all those places because of that thing. And most of the time, most of the things that we did, it was really female things, and not really.
Yeah.
What do you mean they were female-led? Were they?
Well, like for instance, I used to do the limbo dancing. But they weren't concerned about what the men do under the limbo stick. It's what I did under the limbo stick. That was, and because of the costume that you wore and things like that. What you say? I want the limbo dancers. They're thinking about the man, They're thinking about the woman that's coming to do with the limbo dancers,
And how did you find that? How did you find working with that as the kind of environment?
How did I?
How did you find that? What was that like for you?
Well, at that time, it didn't bother me much.
Right.
I was younger. I felt great. They wanted me to dance.
Yes. Yeah.
End of story. My brain was not on that sort of, I get the opportunity to go away, so I've gone away.
Yeah,
You know? And I have to give you this joke. When I was working in an office, and one day I said that I was feeling ill and I couldn't come to work. But yours truly went on a film set called Fire Down Below.
Yes.
And I caught a fire.
Oh no.
And the evening news said, fire down below, girl catch a fire on top. Corinne skin a cat.
That's that
I never went back to that office. I never went back to that office because you say you wish what you get. You get what you wish for.
Yeah.
I said I was ill. I'm
No,
not
you're
ill.
Yes, yes.
So, yes, so,
And then I've got that you've started, that your first TV role I have here was Green Pastures. It was BBC Sunday Night Theatre.
yes, that was in about 50 something.
Yeah, yes. I've got 58.
58,
Yes.
yeah. Again, they were looking for black artists. So I got that. It wasn't a big role, a little role in that thing. And I felt great. It was good. And I enjoyed doing it. But I still went on dancing after that.
Yeah.
As I said, I danced until 1960.
Wow.
1960.
1973.
Huh?
1973.
1973.
Wow.
When
That's Corinne's
when
daughter.
that's my daughter, not my carer or something. Yeah. I got that film because, because I knew Jeffrey from Trinidad, and he came up here to do the choreography for that film.
Right.
So the first people he called on were the people that he knew.
Mm-hmm.
So we got into that film, and that was called Live and Let's Die. That's the James Bond film that I did, and that's the last film I danced in.
Okay. But it was a film.
Because in between that time, I started doing little bits and pieces in the acting trade, and
that led up to, yes.
Anton Philip,
Yeah.
Horace James,
Horace James.
Charlie Hyatt. Charles Hyatt.
And Jonah Maynard.
Oh.
They were all teachers as well as actors. And because of them, they advised me to get into the business of the acting, of the teaching, which I said I came up here to do anyway. And Miss Jonah Maynard didn't leave it as that. She kept on writing off to all these places that started courses and teaching and all sorts of things. And she used to come through my door. And eventually I picked on Trent Park, which was a college at the time, teachers training college at that time. And I went to Trent Park and I trained as a teacher there to teach in a primary school. And I was doing the acting at the same time. I finished with the dancing. I said, I'm not going to keep on dancing when I get to be old. And people would say, what's that Corinne Skinner doing on the stage? She better get so big. What's she doing there? Why doesn't she think about doing something else?
So you were already a teacher then? You were already a teacher when Empire Road came along?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So Empire Road interrupted your teaching career. Empire Road interrupted you.
No, it didn't. Because I must tell you how I got into teaching and where I started teaching and where I ended up teaching for 20 years.
Okay.
When I went for that interview for that job, I said that I couldn't do it because I only wanted to work part-time because I was so sure I was going to get acting jobs. And Mrs. Slack, who was the headmistress at that time, she said to me, "Oh, but that's just the person we want." She says, "You can work part-time here, and when we want a supply teacher, if you are not working, you could do the supply teaching. And when you are working, we could get a supply teacher."
That's a perfect
She says, so
situation
it would
for
be-
any actor.
Yeah.
Any actor.
She
Any
said,
actor wants
she says,
that.
so it will be like a bank.
Yes.
Sometimes you will owe me days, and sometimes I will owe you days.
Brilliant.
So I had my freedom to go whenever I chose the thing. And that's how I happened to get into Empire Road.
Yeah.
And I must say, I am very, very glad that I got into Empire Road, because that was one of the first things that was written by a black person for black people with black things. All the other things were adaptations of this, or they had the odd black person,
Yes.
or they had the thing black person. That one was written by Michael Abinset,
Yes.
and we all enjoyed that.
Yes.
And it went for two lots of series on the
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
And that is what started me off in this profession properly.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Wonderful.
that I have to thank that.
Yeah,
started me off properly.
Empire Road was a huge significance, obviously, to the whole landscape of television and to black culture
Yeah.
in this country. And well, similarly, of such relevance, we had last week we had to talk about Horace Ove, and both you and Carmen
Yeah.
have worked in very important films of Horace's
Yeah.
as well, who was
Yeah.
of great interest during the,
Yeah.
the 70s.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on Horace at all?
I just see Horace did some of he did one of the episodes of Empire Road.
Okay.
Yeah. He also did that film.
Pressure.
Pressure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you
And,
remember
and
that.
you know, and Horace has done a lot of things. But when I told him that one day, he just pushed me away. But I said that Horace is a very, very good photographer.
Yes.
Yes.
And because of his photography, when he does things, he gets the photographic side of it.
Yes. Very
He forget
much.
about the acting side of it, but he doesn't. But he don't forget. But you know what I mean.
He leaves that to you.
His pictures, he visualizes things photographically. You know,
Yes.
and he's very, very good at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Carmen?
Yeah,
About Horace?
yes, I agree with
With
you.
what?
Vicky. I did two pieces with Horace directing,
Yeah.
and he sees the picture, he
Yeah.
sees the thing.
Yes.
Never,
Yeah.
he knows what you're going
Yeah.
to say, but he sees it
Yeah.
in terms of his vision and beautiful work.
It's beautiful, beautiful piece of
beautiful
work,
work.
you know.
He's wonderful.
I'd just like
That's
to
wonderful.
say,
Please do.
I can't think of a black authored television series since Empire Road. I don't mean devised or from a book or...
Yeah.
I can't think of one. If anybody can think of one...
Little Napoleons was written
Was
by
that-
Michael Abinset.
That was Abinset's.
Yeah.
That was...
Us girls,
Just
Carmen
check.
Harris. Us girls.
Oh, that was that was
Okay.
a comedy series. I mean,
Yeah.
a proper...
You said series.
All right,
Oh
darling.
gosh, let me go fight. That's what save the fight for the second half. Donna, since we have you, can we switch to you and have you start your story of how we have the honor of having you here today?
Well, I don't know that I deserve to be among such illustrious company.
Yes, you do, darling.
But,
We know you do.
but it's wonderful. Corinne played my mother in a play.
The first time I met you,
Oh, right.
something on wines.
Sherry and Wine
Sherry
by
and
Jimmy
Wine.
Rand.
Do you remember the one bit?
With me and Ellen Thomas.
Yes, at Ellen Thomas.
Yeah. Jimmy Rand wrote it, that's right.
So yes,
How I
you're-
got to
yes.
where,
How did we get
Now,
here?
my parents came to England from a very tiny village in Hanover called Patty Hill, where Jean Binter Breeze is also from, quite arbitrarily. And I went to school in Birmingham. And at school, my teachers are very impressed with my drama and my dancing and my writing and all the rest of it. My teachers suggested I should go to drama school. And that sort of, in your cyclorama as a child, as a black woman, female child, there's nursing, there's secretarial, you can do that. Acting was just not in the psych at all. But my teachers insisted, so I did. And I went to my local drama school, Birmingham Theatre School, and the rest, as they say, is history. I left school in 1976, and my first job was at the Bush Theatre in Shepherd's Bush. So when Lynette got the job, I held her by the shoulders, and I said, only 43 years later, but I am so happy that I just felt like the circle had gone.
Beautiful circle, absolutely.
I was really happy about that. But I was at drama school, and again, same thing at drama school. There's this maid in that play, the old lady in that play, because I was always a character actor.
What does that mean?
It means you don't play ingenues. You don't kiss people.
You don't have no sex life.
You have no sex life. Yes.
No, sex life.
They must have not been looking.
As far as this industry is concerned.
Can you imagine?
I remember there was one time I did the first time I ever played a lover was a film by Jean Binter-Breeze, which we filmed in 1990, called Hallelujah Anyhow.
Yes. And boy, did you.
Oh,
You made up for lost time.
And we had, and there was a scene where I'm in bed with Keith David. And two things happened as a result of that.
At least two.
And she's now 30. No. The day after the film was screened on BBC One, I'm getting on the tube to go down to Brixton at Oxford Circus, and as I got on the platform, the train's coming in, and the driver, I'm walking by, and the driver put his head out the window and he says, "Wait, I know you're about to miss you on the TV." But he had. I just got on the train.
It was a beautiful shot. It was beautiful.
But what else happened as a result of that film? I found out Jean was a cousin of mine. That was another thing. And then BAFTA flew me to LA because this film was now in the DAR and it was doing well at the BFI, had it at the centre presentation. But that was the sort of highlights of my film career. But my theatre career, I've been, touch wood, really lucky, yes, but also pushy. Because,
interesting.
I will go into auditions and they want me to play this, and I'll say, well, how about me playing that? Oh, they hadn't thought of that. And suddenly it becomes exciting. So, you have to make these suggestions, because if you sit and wait for people to see you in a certain way,
Not going to happen.
I mean, really, this whole thing really is about how we're represented.
Yes.
And it's about us trying to take some control over how we are represented.
Absolutely, that's why we're here.
In the industry.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's something that I was very aware of, and I was made aware of it just because of the circumstances, but also because of the women who I was working with. I went to see Mona Hammond this week. She's in a home, and every time I see her, I hold her hand and I thank her because of the advice she gave me. I thank you ladies too because of the advice you gave me. And if ever I hit a little spot or a little trouble, I think now, what would they say? And I hear a voice.
I often think, what would Donna Croll do?
Yeah. She'd walk out. And I hear a voice and I take, and I'm also very aware that the struggles and the battles that you fought, were fought so that I don't have to fight them. And I'm very aware that I have a responsibility not to fuck off.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that would be letting you down.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yes,
mean?
well.
No, but it's true.
Well,
You never told me.
So, and also you were going to talk about your theatre career, and
Oh,
of
my
course
theatre
one of the
career.
things is that you were the first black Cleopatra.
That's what they say.
Oh, okay.
But I wasn't aware of that. I saw it in the
Okay.
British Library. They said,
So you can
oh,
tell
I
us
might,
if
I
that's
didn't
true.
know that. You might do the history.
Is
But-
that true? Is not true? Is it true?
I don't know about the time scale. 'Cause
Right.
Kathy Tyson did it.
Oh no, well
Oh,
no,
I
you were
did.
before
Oh, I
Kathy.
before Kathy.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, and you did the Tallowa.
I did the tallow one.
Yes.
Ah.
Easy.
I told you I wanted to sit in the back. I can't afford to make
But-
mistakes.
So yes, that was a Tallowa.
I'm okay.
Again, Tallowa.
Yes.
I'm always a bit sceptical about taking on this, oh, I'm the first to do this, or we're the first to do that.
Yes.
But because the history isn't celebrated, recognised, written down,
Yes.
you never know.
Now that's a big thing.
Yeah, I hear kids coming out of drama school saying, oh, I'm doing this, and
I'm the first.
yeah,
Been there,
Yeah.
done that.
yeah. People have done it before, love.
Yeah.
I heard a young man. I remember. Do you remember when Rudolph Walker was doing Love Thy Neighbour?
Yes.
And it was a dreadful show by today's standards, but there was no other work at the time.
Yes.
And I heard a young actor say to Rudolph, "Why did you do that
Oh.
show? It was terrible." And I'm thinking, young man,
Shut up.
either you do that work or you do not work.
Yeah, and it held the door open. All of these things held the door open for everything that's coming through now as a result. There was a presence was maintained.
And the
You were
bottom
visible.
line is keep working.
Yeah.
Working.
That's the bottom
Yeah.
line.
Yes.
Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. That's what jobbing actor means. You job, you
Now,
do it.
one thing I found fascinating, last week I attended the talk on Horace Sauvé's Hole in Babylon, that you were in, Carmen, and Floella Benjamin was here talking, and she says, and that really surprised me, but that there was so much work, she said, in the 60s and 70s.
Yes,
Yes.
well,
Yes.
there was.
I didn't know.
Thomas Baptiste told me a great story. I worked with him in the 90s. Bless him. He said, you know, in the old days, I could go on the film set in the grass skirts and go bada, 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 pick up £5,000 and go home. Can't do that anymore.
Swings, roundabouts. The swings and roundabouts.
He really killed me. I thought. He was bemoaning the fact.
You can save that for when he's at home.
Make me
So
laugh.
also as a nice little link, of course, then you moved into television. You've done a lot of television.
My first television job was 1976, and it was a series called Gangsters, and Oscar James had to kill me.
Oh.
Syed Jaffrey
Brilliant.
was in it, and Maurice
Syed
Colburn
Jaffrey.
played the lead. It was a sort of 1970s Peaky Blinders.
Oh, lovely.
Because I'm from Birmingham,
Okay.
and what happens with my early theatre career, my first job was they were looking for brummies.
Yes.
So
First job was what?
at the Bush Theatre, they were looking for brummies. They weren't particularly looking for
People from
black
Birmingham.
They were looking for people from Birmingham. They were looking for people from Birmingham. Yeah, thank you. A brummie. And and I do have the accent, so it's yeah.
Annie, less heckling from the audience. And then, of course, you also did Casualty in the early days of Casualty.
Wow, now that was a first. Because although it's set in a hospital, we all know that black women run the health service.
Yes.
There was never a black nurse in Casualty. Female. There was George Harris, Eddie Nestor, Patrick
Robinson.
no, before
Before Patrick
Patrick.
Robinson.
Before Patrick was, what's his name? He played with me in Elmina's Kitchen. Patterson Joseph.
Patterson, that's
Yeah.
right.
That's right, yes. So you came on and you were the first black
Yes.
female nurse.
Yes.
Amazing.
And so and Brenda And Brenda Fricker had just left because she got an Oscar
Yes,
for
that's
My
right,
Left
My
Foot.
Left
So
Foot.
they used to ask me at press conferences, so are you taking over from Brenda Fricker? And I said, well, I've never seen the BBC have a black actress play the lead part in their #1 drama series. You never know.
With any luck.
Good.
With any luck.
And then
Yeah.
they brought in Jane Gannett.
Yeah.
That's it.
There you go. But that mantle was taken up. You see how I'm segueing here?
Yeah.
By Adjoa.
Adjoa went
who also.
And then Martina.
I wasn't a nurse.
She wasn't a nurse.
So Adjoa, can you tell us where you would like to start your story of how we have the honor of having you here today?
Well, so I grew up in the Cotswolds in Gloucestershire. There were 3 black people where I lived. Me, my brother, and my dad. My father is still flying the flag at 88 out in the Cotswolds. He's still there.
He came over from Ghana.
So my dad came from Ghana in 58. He was a journalist. And he was Ghana, not Guyana. We always had that. You're from Guyana? No, Ghana. Is it the same thing? No.
Is that part of Jamaica?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So yes, as a result of seeing the way that black people were treated in Bristol, my dad said, I'm not raising my children in that city, thank you very much. We grew up in the Cotswolds. I was that kid who always did plays in the front room with her friends and made adults pay money to sit through hours of interminable just nonsense. And drama was the thing I loved most at school, and it was the thing I was good at. But drama wasn't considered a proper subject at my school. So unless you were doing A-levels, you weren't allowed to do drama O-level. So when I was doing A-levels, I was allowed to do drama O-level. Guess what the only thing was that I got a decent mark in? Drama. Yeah. And I had a drama teacher called Vera Connor Douglas, and she was from Birmingham. And I wish that she had lived longer because her brother was a professional actor. That was like saying he was an astronaut.
Absolutely.
So a one step remove, I was working with a professional actor now.
Yeah.
And she would give me notes and she'd say, now, I'm giving you this note as a professional note. And I was like, oh, tell me off. Tell me off. Professionally. Anyway. But it wasn't something that you didn't become an actor. You didn't become an actor. You worked in the bank, or you joined the civil service, or because I was a good African daughter, I was supposed to go to university and become a lawyer or a doctor, or if you were really poor, an accountant. Yeah. So I did a year and a half of my law degree before I bailed on that. But the great thing was, I was at Bristol Polytechnic, and while I was there in the first year, a woman called Yvonne Ramsaran, who was Guyanese-Irish, Indian Guyanese-Irish, she was in the third year of the law degree, and a Turkish woman in the second year grabbed Yvonne and said, oh my God, there's one in the first year, get her. Because they were part of the Bristol Black Women's Group. Now, in the 80s, that black was also used as a term of women of colour. So the Black Women's Group in Bristol consisted of Asian women and African Caribbean women and Indian, and Turkish, and that's what it was. So I joined Bristol Black Women's Group, which was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me, because I suddenly made common cause. Yeah. And I just that thing, you grew up in the Cotswolds, the black people you know are your friends, your parents' friends and family and relatives, but they're not with you 24/7. You visit, they visit, that sort of thing. And to suddenly be in this Black Women's Group and have my eyes open to, June Jordan and Lorraine Hansberry and Alice Walker and Ama Ata Edu and just all these women writers, black women who were writers, and just to kind of go, okay, because my dad really didn't do that. He would do James Bond, he was on the boy tip.
Yes,
yeah.
He just wasn't, we went to Greenham Common. Our Black Women's Group went to Greenham Common. We came in a sororal visit to Brixton Black Women's Group. We made common cause. And in the early 80s, there were these fantastic writing conferences. There was the We Are Here conferences. I don't know if anyone remembers those. No. Okay, there were lots of different Black women's conferences in London. There were writing conferences so we went to Bristol Black Women's Group and I met Dorothea Smart and we became lovers and then we were friends and she's like godmother to all my children. And Jackie Kay, Pratibha Palmer. There was just like there were loads and loads of really thoughtful, active filmmakers, poets, painters, Maud Salt. I mean, there was just like Sonia Boyce. There was just like everybody.
Renaissance.
And everybody was doing everything. All forms of art that were happening, and it was a really thrilling time to come. Anyway, I went back to my Bristol Black Women's Group, and there's a woman in my Bristol Black Women's Group called Deborah John Wilson, and she was in a band called Akimbo. Deborah John Wilson was from New York. Her brother was Yaphet Kotto. You might know the American actor Yaphet Kotto. And one of their family friends was Lenny Bruce. These were the circles that they moved. So Yaphet Kotto, anyway.
He did fences here.
He did fences here.
Yes.
So Deborah said, I've written a play, and Ken Livingstone, GLC, 1950.
Yes.
That GLC, honestly, did they not keep us?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Damn.
This is
I
the
know
thing
about
because
that.
people talk very much about a renaissance happening now as though it's a new thing.
And this is a great.
Yeah.
This is shouting.
Go ahead.
Shouting.
Shouting.
But this
Angry
is
black women.
This is why these conversations are really important because what we don't need to do is keep reinventing the wheel.
Correct.
Yes.
We there are spokes of a wheel here.
Yeah.
We can move on to the combustion engine maybe. Do you know
Wouldn't
what I'm
that be
saying?
nice?
Anyway, so Deborah said to me, so by this time I'd packed in my law degree. I was working in a legal aid centre in Bedminster and Bristol. I was still doing law stuff, but I knew I didn't want to care about land law or torts. I knew all the constitutional law I cared to know about, and all of it was saying if you're rich enough you can shaft everybody else. So no change there. And I rang my dad. I had to tell my dad that I was leaving my law degree, and he was like, just finish it. I'm 56. Every so often he'll say, is that the law degree? It's like, mate, no, it's not. No, Dad.
And when I met you, one of the things when I met you, you started your own theatre company. So again, there's a theme here of women starting.
Well, and a lot of that, Martina, was so I came to London.
Yes.
And I did my first job at the Drill Hall. We were at the Drill Hall, the Oval House, and the Acton Community Centre. And it was an all-black women's show, nothing new under the sun. This is 84.
Yes.
It's called Where Do I Go From Here? 5 black women. Deborah had written the show, and we toured it, and we did it in London, and then I was supposed to go back to Bristol and go back to work in the law centre, and I was just like, nah, mate, I'm not going back. So I moved into a squat in Brixton, and I have to say, sort of picking up on what Donna was saying, all the first jobs I ever heard about auditioning for, other black actresses told me about.
Yes.
So they put me in competition with them for a job out of solidarity.
Yes.
And for my whole career, it's the one thing that I've really held on to, that we have to help each other.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Because there is no network unless we make the network.
Yeah, we make the network.
And otherwise, you're just fighting over the crumbs.
Exactly.
That fall from the table.
Yeah.
And what we
Makes
should
no
be.
sense.
So this is a little bugbear of. I want us to come together. You know, there's Black Trust doing something here, and there's another thing happening here, and I want us to not be fragmented.
No, absolutely.
Because when we have the weight of numbers and energy, we can shift things more powerfully.
Yes.
And I don't even think the shift is so. I think that we need a greater shift into in producing, directing, all the stuff that happens back to the cinematography, the designers, all that we need that shift, that structural, the stuff that makes things happen. Shift. We you know.
All of it.
All of it. We need all of it. We need all of it. The commissioning, all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Because and I think the thing for we want to work all the time and we want to be jobbing actors. Well, we don't want to be jobbing actors actually. No, we don't. We want to have a career rather than a job to job to job. Thank you.
But
But
black actors have careers. Black actors have jobs.
jobs.
Yeah.
That's the one.
But you are someone who have been on all those different aspects. You have produced. I mean, most of you would know, of course, that Doña and Adjoa have just worked together on Richard II at the Globe. We got Dominique in the audience who
composed
the music for that. So you and of course, as I was saying, you started your own theatre company,
Yes.
Wild Iris.
Wild
so
Iris,
how what led to that, and what led you to move on from those things?
Well, the thing that made me move on from Wild Iris was baby number 3. I was just exhausted.
Which is also a very real consideration for women.
Yes, it is. It is. It's
Yes.
put, it's a vocation, but it's also it's how we put food on the table and pay the rent.
Exactly.
So that's why to keep working as you were saying is the thing. Keeping working and actually having the stamina to stay in the game. That's the thing.
I remember when we were in Casualty together, I remember getting a lift from Adjoa up one Monday morning or something like that, because you were commuting.
I commuted to
from
Bristol.
Brixton to Bristol
every day,
so that you would be home with your kids.
Yeah. Who don't remember me being there.
Yeah, we should probably be having a little break. So if we give it a 20-minute break, water yourself.